Back in 2019, adventurer and author Alistair Humphreys asked a really simple question. What was stopping people from living a more adventurous life? Other than the most common responses around time and money, people's concerns ranged from being afraid or having a lack of confidence in the outdoors to family restrictions and other people's expectations. But some of the more interesting were around our own self-limiting beliefs. I've come down to Shropshire to catch up with Ben Turner, the adventure coach, who knows a thing or two about helping people to overcome those worries and concerns and enjoy some extraordinary adventures. So lots of people, I think, have ambitions, don't they, to get outdoors and maybe be more adventurous, but what are the things that you see that kind of limit people or stop them doing that?
I think from what I've found, a lot of people they're first and foremost limited by their own self-belief, and before that sounds too mega deep, it is simply the point of people have got busy lives. We've got jobs, kids, dogs, friends, things that we need to do, all the bills that we need to pay. And if ever there's one barrier to get in the way, no matter how big or small that barrier is, it'll stop them going.
Yeah, and there's definitely an access issue, I guess. You know, if you're, I don't know, there's quite a bit of planning involved, I guess, in some of this stuff. If it's not on your doorstep, I don't know. How do you see people getting access? If you live in London, what do you do?
I've got a good example for this one. So, you live in London, yet you want to get out in hills, you want to go and find trails, and that's a hard time in London. You know, unless you go to say Richmond or Hampstead Heath or something. There is something that exists that Daniel Raven Ellison had a bit of an initiative around, called the National Park City, and you can get a green spaces map for London. Which, if you imagine an OS map of London, imagine kind of what that looks like. Take away the boldness of the roads, you can still see them, but take away the boldness of the colours, and then highlight all the green stuff. And you can say, right, I live in, my London geography is not fantastic, but let's say I live in Angel. I live there, right in the middle of buildings and stuff. Well, you can look at all the green stuff and go, well, these are public access green spaces, parks, areas. Do you know what? I'm going to go to that one today. It's 300 metres away from my house, and I'm going to do that instead of mounting an expedition to the Lake District. Like, look where we are. We're 500 metres away from town centre, and we're on these wonderful trails and wonderful paths. If anything happens, guaranteed there's going to be someone come around that corner in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So you've kind of got a little bit more of a tame space. So when it does come to people just starting, look really close to home.
One of the main things in this research that Alistair Humphreys did was about self-limiting beliefs. Right? I don't think I'm capable of doing X, Y, and Z. How true do you think that is?
So it's a famous saying, isn't there? He who says he can and he who says he can't are both usually right. Now, if you say you can do something, you're absolutely right. If you say you can't do something, you're absolutely right. I think how we go from can't to can, not the other way around, from can't to can, is to objectively analyse where you're at. Because confidence doesn't come first, competence comes first. I firmly believe that. Confidence comes later as a product of knowing what you're doing. Now, once you've learnt the skill, you know that you've got your jacket on and you know that you can go for a walk quite happily around here for 5k, you know that you can climb the mountain, whatever it is, you've got the skill, the confidence comes with it. So when we look at those self-limiting beliefs, we have to recognise and realise, objectively, be your own coach. This is not a self-loathing opportunity. Be your own coach and say, right, where am I lacking in skill, in confidence, in belief? What do I need to do to fix that? Because when you look at the competence and you address that, confidence flows as a second order effect. So many people are watching these motivational videos on YouTube and trying to get really fired up, and that motivation's gone the next morning because they haven't addressed the competence issue. They haven't committed to developing their body or managing their health and nutrition, or trying new things to forge mental resilience, like jumping in an ice barrel, for example. They're not trying to develop their new skill, like maybe learning to navigate. So they're not addressing the competence first. They're still looking for confidence somewhere and then being stuck in the fact that confidence gone as soon as the motivation's gone. So you need to address competence first, build the skills, and then confidence comes with it.
So it's all there for the taking.
Indeed, absolutely.
Let's go and do it. What if it does all go wrong though? I mean, what if you are caught out somewhere and you get soaked and you haven't got the kit?
I think I'm not going to say what's the worst that could happen, because anybody could chime in and say, well, what if I died? I've been in some fairly hairy situations in my time where things have gone completely wrong, and it's been a little bit like, oh, okay, this is a bit more serious now. And my number one piece of advice to anybody who finds himself in this situation is stop. If you've got the opportunity to make a brew, make a brew. And we used to do this in the army. We used to do it so when you get to a new location, you sit and have something called a soak period. And you're in the army, you're doing that to make sure that nobody's following you. But if you think, oh my God, I think I'm lost, like I don't know where I am. The immediate thing you're going to do is your heart rate's going to go up, your blood pressure's going to spike, you're going to go hot, you're going to start shaking, and you'll be like, everything's going to go wrong. But if you sit, take your pack off and go, make a brew, or I'm going to have something to eat, I'm just going to have a swig of water, or I'm going to sit down and I'm just going to wait for a minute. Then what you're doing is you're just allowing yourself to kind of become a little bit more connected to what's going on around you. I had this on a mountain on the Isle of Skye called Bleven. It's my favourite Skye mountain, it's brilliant. And it was the first time I did it, and I was walking up the mountain about 7 p.m-ish. I knew I could do it in a couple of hours and just head down. And I was aiming for this tiny little goat track, which I had read about in a guidebook, never been up there to see it, that comes back down and you kind of end up doing what looks like a sort of 9 shape on the trail. I missed it completely. And the cloud came in, it was getting dark, it was getting windy. It's a very steep drop over this side for a very long way, and then you're kind of on a ridge, and the track I was hoping for is somewhere down there. I just didn't know where it was. I was like, I've actually lost, like I don't know where I am. And I'm looking at the map, because I had the map at the time rather than the app, and I'm like, I don't know where I am. And I thought, right, I just sat down on my bag. This is suboptimal. I put my jacket on so you're warm, I put a hat on so I'm warm, and I put my gloves on. I thought I'm just gonna take a minute, and I had a flapjack or a chocolate bar or something. I had a drink of water. I was like, right, well, look at the map. If I forget the goat track, it's not there. I don't know where it is, I can't see it. I'll come back another day and find it. And I thought, well, I know that I can head down this ridge. Yes, I'm gonna have to go out the road. Yes, it's gonna be a long way to get back, but it's safe and it's fine. It's better than retracing my steps back, because it was quite a steep trail up, so I know what to do. And with a clear ahead, you find a trail. In a non-clear ahead, you're gonna be like, it's got to be over there, so I'm gonna walk to the edge of this really steep mountain, and I'm gonna try and find it, which is where things can obviously go wrong. So when it does go wrong, stop.
Well, what you don't want people to have is those horrible experiences and then
Thing is,
not do it again, right?
is it a horrible experience? I was told once that you never have good or bad experiences, you always have a great story to tell in the pub. Now, I've got a client who's doing this really fun thing, and he's a little bit nervous about it. It's a big challenge for him. He was like, what if it all goes wrong? I was like, what do you think is the worst that's going to happen? It's like, well, I'm not going to complete the challenge. And I'm like, well, if that's what you think is the worst thing that's going to happen, fantastic. Go and get caught out in the weather. I'm going to be his overwatch for this entire challenge, so I'm going to be dot watching him and making sure he's safe and sorted. But ultimately, he's going to go out and he's like, do you know what? It's just going to be a good story to tell in the pub after.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is going to be.
Yeah.
You know, if the thing is, you've got to remember that I'm going to get philosophical now. In life, this is stove number 2, by the way. In life, this is for the oat milk. In life, you're always going to have good and bad experiences. And I went out into the hills the other day and I was thinking about this, and I'm going to tell you it now. Life's a bit like going in the mountains. You're going to have good and bad experiences. You can't avoid the bad experiences in the mountains as much as you can't avoid the bad experiences in life. And we need the bad experiences to make sure that we can appreciate the good. Because if all we had was good, bluebird, crisp, sunny days, it would lose its potency. And you'd be like, oh, this is just normal. But if you have gone out and it's bogging and it's freezing and your hands want to fall off and you're like, this is a grim day, I'm never doing this again. Then when you do go out on a crisp, beautiful spring dawn, and you're like, do you know what? I feel pretty lucky for this. It puts it all into perspective.
Yeah.
And you'll always look back on those terrible things and go, that was quite an experience to have, or that was a pretty funky situation to be in. And you look at it and go, I've learned something from that.
Yeah. How much do you think people learn on those things that do genuinely help with everyday life, you know, overcoming challenges and obstacles? Do you think there really is a sort of, you know, do you learn stuff in the outdoors and doing adventures and things that make a real difference when you come back home?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. in the army we used to have adventure training, and the whole point of adventure training was to put soldiers into uncomfortable situations that weren't getting shot at. You can't train to be shot at. You can't train to be in Afghanistan, but you can train to be in a comfortable situation. And when you're on a knife-edge ridge of a Scottish mountain on a rope, and all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, I'm fine in the hills, and all of a sudden you're like, this has got to me, and you overcome it. Think about the version of you that become. If you just physically exerting yourself outside feels fantastic, you can't deny that. Jumping in cold water feels fantastic. Do you want to do it at the time? No. Do you want to do it when you're getting into it? No. Do you force yourself to stay in there? Sometimes yes. Are you really concentrating on that Wim Hof breathing to keep you going? Yeah, definitely. And then you get out and you feel fantastic. What have you learned? Well, I learned that doing uncomfortable things makes me feel good. So I want to do more of them. I learned that visceral experience of being in mountains, watching a sunrise on a bluebird day, breathing in fresh air, and sitting there and just thinking about what your body does. And you're like, I know, I don't want this to sound hippie and sort of woo-woo here, but like, when you have that experience and you sat there and you've always got like tears in your eyes, sounds pathetic, but you've always got like tears in your eyes and you're like, you know, this is brilliant.
So we've talked quite a lot about maybe some of the things that stop people from going outdoors or taking on adventures and what have you, and maybe some of the ways in which they could overcome them. But I'm really interested from your experience to hear kind of the effect it has on some people.
You know, I work in a coaching capacity, and the majority of coaches in the world will go into coaching simply because they are coaching the version of themselves from, say, 10 years ago, or when they first started out. So I think the first point of call here would be, it's easy, I think, to see influencers on Instagram and be like, yeah, these people are doing all these amazing things. I could never do that. But the thing is, they didn't start there.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to run 230 miles later on this year. I didn't start running 230 miles. I started struggling to run 1 mile. And I think it's important to realise that there's a journey to be had, and that we need to not necessarily expectation manage, but kind of just understand that we need to tread that journey. There's something I'll say to everybody, and it's becoming over achieving. Who you become along the way is so much more important than the thing you achieve. Nobody cares about the race. It doesn't matter. And you won't either. You'll do the thing and you'll be like, oh, that's very good. But it's the version of you that can do that, and is capable of doing that, and is happy doing that, and can find the excuses to go and have a fire pit at night, or go and climb a hill, or go and have a hot chocolate on the hillside. You know, when we do that, then we understand the transformation that people can make, because it's changing your lifestyle. If you're watching this, listening to this, and feeling not necessarily triggered at some things, but kind of thinking, actually, there are certain things that relate to me that I need to change, then guess what? You've understood and recognised a part of your lifestyle that needs to change. And in order to do that, you've got to start somewhere. And, you know, I've coached people who have fully embraced the process of being open-minded enough to try and understand what they need to alter and change, and gone with it. People who have, quite frankly, been in the position of maybe quiet and timid, and not really wanting to bother you by sending a message. The amount of people that send me a message saying, oh, I've kind of been sitting on this message for a good few weeks, and I just didn't really want to send it, because it's intimidating to send people a message and say, look, I'm struggling, I'm just a person on the internet, nobody cares. But the thing is, it's really hard to open up about that. But then you embrace it, and you go, right, let's systematically go through all these alterations and figure out what it is that we need to do, what's going to bring out the best for you.
So, if we're going to wrap up then, what are we saying to people? What do you think is the most important message?
That's a good one. I think the most important message, if I could talk directly to anybody watching, listening to this, even just to yourself, if you feel that there is something that you want to change, and you'll know that because you'll feel a feeling of disconnect, and I think disconnect's a fantastic word for it. You can be like, this isn't all it's all about, is it? I go to work, I'm miserable, and I come home and I'm miserable. Like, okay, maybe an extremist, but there'll be a feeling of disconnect. You'll feel like you are not performing how you want to in life, in yourself, with other people, intimately, whatever, it doesn't matter. But you'll feel that feeling. You need to objectively look at that and go, right, what is missing? Oh, I just want to get out in the mountains, man. I just want to go and do things. I want to I watched Ray Mears at the outdoor show the other day, and do you know what? I just want to go do things. I want to go and find a mushroom and eat it. I'm like, okay, be a bit more careful with that. But you're going to get the Ray Mears Wild Food book and the Bushcraft book. You're going to go out and do something. You've found an element of knowledge that you're missing, because people need to realise they don't have every single element of knowledge that they think they need to have in order to change. It takes a difference. It takes learning a new skill. So you need to understand the gap between where you're at now, where you want to be. In that gap is a competency. Objectively look at that. Right, I need to learn how to climb a mountain. I ain't got a clue. Like, how do I go on a trail and not roll an ankle? What's ankle support on boots? What does all this mean? Understand that. Go and quiz someone about it. Find some, worthwhile influencers to follow, and look at what they're doing. Read books. Build the competency. Go out there and have an experience, because you're building your own experiential learning there. Like we were saying before about getting lost and scratching your head and being like, I don't know where I am. Well, stop. The world's not going to cave in, and then figure it out. You're building that experiential learning, and then comes confidence. Confidence doesn't come first, and people really need to understand that, because they're looking and searching for confidence. They're looking for motivational videos. They're looking for something to ignite a fire and a passion. It's wonderful to have that feeling in here of being like, this is what I'm born to do, man. And then it goes tomorrow morning at 5 o'clock in the morning when your alarm goes off. Well, they're looking for that, but first you need to build the skills. Keep it real, keep it normal, keep it easy to start off with, because you want to build a massive experience and success. The last thing you want to do is like, right, Everest Base Camp, here I come, and have a failure on one of your first opportunities to do something because you've gone in too deep, because that will put people off from ever doing it again, because that confidence that's so small and embryonic is gone. But if you start building some confidence, I did a lap around the woods, that was brilliant, that's one, brilliant. You're building, I saw it there was a quote from Modern Wisdom podcast. He was talking to David Goggins, and it was building, this is a second-hand recycled quote from Alex Hormozy, I think, and it was, I'm trying to remember the quote now, it was building a stack of undeniable proof that you are who you say you are, or, in the Ben Turner quote of things, you are who you think you are. Because if you're thinking you're someone else, you need to build undeniable proof, a stack of undeniable proof that is exactly the case. Thank you to all the people that have recycled that quote. Because that's giving you confidence. Because confidence comes with experience.
And enjoy it.
Absolutely.